Hello there YouTube, my name is Chuggy and today I am playing some Battlefield 3, playing some Team Deathmatch on Caspian Border and Hardcore Conquest on Gulf of Oman. Today guys, this is question time part 31. If you've not seen this series before guys, it is my god honest answers to your great questions. I've got another superb range of questions this week, from why I've not been posting much gameplay as of late to my thoughts on Battlefield 4, as well as a load of other videos and sim racing related things, and well, as I just said, this is my god honest answers to your questions. If you have anything you'd like me to answer, from gaming to real life to politics, whatever you can think of, please do feel free to pop it down in the comment section below and I'll get to answering it next question time. But first though, let me just briefly mention what you will be watching as I answer your questions this week. Well, I've got two gameplays, as I just mentioned. First of all, we have this game of Team Deathmatch on Caspian Border. So today, I decided to run around with the M98B. Before the Back to Karkan DLC came out, this was my favourite sniper rifle. It was my rifle of choice. But ever since the L96 was put very firmly into my grasp, I haven't put it down as a sniping, or my main tool for when I've been sniping and doing recon work. The M98B is a powerhouse though, and it does work very well in close quarters, as you will be seeing. And this style of play is inspired by a gentleman called Mr. Mumra2K. He has a YouTube channel, check him out. He does a lot of aggressive recon with the M98B, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna have a go, you know. And this is pretty much his setup on the rifle as well. So check him out, and that pretty much concludes what this gameplay is about. The second gameplay, well, you guys suggested to me to play some hardcore, and I don't normally play hardcore matches, normally play the core stuff, and it was actually a very interesting experience. I was expecting it to be more difficult and more tactical, and it was and wasn't in an interesting kind of way really. I was expecting, you know, quite a few people to be hiding in corners, not going for objectives and all this kind of stuff. But actually it wasn't necessarily a case of that. It was more actually interesting to just see how, just by removing a few things like vehicle regeneration, health regeneration, how you've really got to change up your playstyle. So you see a lot of me flying around in the the Viper, shooting down Havocs, and yeah, doing some engineering work, and actually, amazingly, getting a kill with the Igloo. Dun dun dun! Which normally you'd be banned for in 3 seconds in a core server. But anyway, I digress. Enough about the gameplay, let me get to your great questions this week. First one comes from NayJames123, and they ask, how come I haven't been posting much recently, in particular PC gameplay? Well, I will be totally honest with you, NayJames, it is a case of time, and the fact that I've in general not got very much of it these days. My day job, I have a lot of responsibilities, lots of things to do, and you know, that is how I keep myself fed and watered and everything else, and put frankly, it has to come first over the videos. So unfortunately, I just haven't had much time. Now in terms of PC gameplay and that kind of thing, well, you saw Counter-Strike Go last week. You'll be seeing more PC as I meander my way through my Steam library and look at all the games I've bought and not really played. But yeah, I do intend to basically go for quality over quantity, I'll be totally honest, and I don't want to, you know, produce loads of low quality stuff or not really give it the effort and time it needs. I'd much rather take my time with it and produce fewer and have more, you know, better quality experience, I don't know, anyway. So guys, hopefully you understand that, and that is the brutally honest answer. Time is very fickle and finite, and you've got to, I guess, organise yourself and pace yourself for what all actually is important in these things sometimes. Anyway, I digress. Thank you very much, NayJames, for your question. I hope you appreciate the answer there. Next question comes from Maverick SASR, and they ask, what are my top 10 things I want to see in Battlefield 4? Well, I have actually made a video about what I would like to see changed, I guess, from Battlefield 3 to Battlefield 4, if you want to count that. And basically, it wasn't a list of 10 things. It was a list of basically things I'd tweak, not things I want to see, because fundamentally I think Battlefield 3 is a very decent first-person shooter tactical experience. There are definitely things I think could be improved upon, in particular, you know, the netcode, bunny hopping, all this sort of stuff I think is, you know, not an abuse of the system, but is very, very, very beneficial because netcode can't keep up, that kind of thing. You know, for instance, I should have been absolutely wasted there by that automatic, but nope, my Magnum, due to funny hitbox or something, got me alive, or kept me alive, I should say. Things like that, you know, and a bit of weapon balance tweaking, maybe a few class tweaks. New stuff, don't get me wrong, love to see a few new things, and by the looks of it, DICE are going to be bringing that. For instance, the single-player experience seems to be kind of a combination of squad-based single-player, where you have AI as your squad mates and stuff like that. That looks really neat. We'll have the return of, say, Commander mode as well. I think that's been pretty much confirmed. So one player will be overall in charge of all the fighting forces on your side. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stuff coming, but fundamentally I would like improvements over Battlefield 3. I'd much rather have a really solid, enjoyable experience and an experience with lots of things, but then all not quite there, if you get my meaning. So yeah, it's many things to say, but check out my video, I think, my previous video for a better answer. So thank you, Maverick, for the question there. Next question comes from Trey Kuriba, and they ask, first of all, do I know how to play any card games like Uno or poker, and have I heard about the Battlefield 4 Limited Edition? Yeah, I know a few card games. Uno, I know how to play Uno. I know how to play poker, although very badly because my poker face is non-existent. And, Blackjack 21, I'm pretty dab handy at that. I've programmed that up in a few programming languages in the past. So yeah, I know a fair few card games. And what about Battlefield 4 Limited Edition? Well, I haven't heard much, but I have heard that basically if you sort of pre-order, you'll get the premium kind of deal. I don't know if that's going to be all the DLC or basically the premium experience as we know it now without the DLC. But also I've heard talk of the first DLC being included as it was done with Back to Karkand, and I think it's called Drone Strike. All unconfirmed, all sort of rumoured around because of, as it happens actually, news items and releases from GameStops and game shops in the States, with advertising and whatever else, which has actually given that away. But yeah, that's as much as I know. If you know more, please do share. It would be pretty cool to see where DICE are heading with Battlefield 4. As I've just said, I more than anything want to see improvements to Battlefield 3 rather than new stuff, but don't get me wrong, say fighting, for instance, there's a rumour going around of 3 factions, so Russia, China, America on the same map, that kind of thing. That'd be quite cool. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what Battlefield 4 brings, and obviously E3 is coming up in the very near future, so we won't have to wait long, I think. So yeah, thank you very much, Trey, for the great questions there. Next question again comes from Maverick SASR, and they ask, what do I think about having a female character option in Battlefield 4? Will I be playing or racing with Tom in the GPVWC Sim Racing League? And how come I don't upload my view of Redux, which is a series that Tom does on his channel? Well, first of all, female characters in Battlefield 4. We've got one. She's Hannah in the single player. As for characters in multiplayer, well, I can tell you now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for gender equality, whatever else in video games, but I know from my experience of going around PlayStation Home that the only people you really tend to see as girls are guys trying to troll, and actual girls I know who play games and whatnot, and in particular on Home, they just dress up as guys because it's just easier, they don't get harassed and whatever else. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I think it'd be cool, it'd be a nice touch, nice and authentic, but I can see it kind of not really working out perhaps as intended. Will I be racing with Tom in the GPVWC? I won't be racing with Tom, but I will be racing in the GPVWC very shortly. To be announced, I'll say that much. And how come I don't upload my perspective of Redux? Well, first of all, Redux is myself, Matt, Tom, and Mike's playing through Rainbow Six Vegas and Vegas 2, or the Terrorist Hunt maps. How come I don't upload my perspective? Well, being frank, that's Tom's series, and I don't want to, I wouldn't say piss in his pool, but I don't want to tread on his idea and everything else. I have a lot of fun taking part in it, and I'm going to have to be very careful about what I say now. But yeah, it's a cool series to be a part of, and you may see perhaps things from me in the future. We will see on that kind of front. So Maverick, thank you very much for those additional questions there. Next question comes from SuperDan 3188, and they ask, how would I rate myself as a Battlefield player? Would I say that I'm good, and what would I say I'm good or bad at in the game? Well, I'd say that my real core strength in Battlefield is 2 things. First of all, tactical assessment of a situation and flexibility. So I can play pretty much all of the kits, and I can play them reasonably well, but I'm not really a master at any of them. I know how to play, say, the Recon better than I do a few other kits, but that's probably my only real speciality. My tactical nous, I think, is pretty neat. I can tell just by distribution of friendlies and just how objectives are going, I can pretty much almost predict where, the next flashpoint will be, and I can can certainly, position myself tactically there in that regard. But because I'm not a real master of any kit, I can't really exploit any kit. So at the same time, flexibility is kind of a pro and a con. Now on top of that, I can fight infantry to infantry, but I'm nowhere near as good as some people out there. For instance, Mike's from the squad is a freaking death machine. Honestly, once he gets going, you can't stop him. So I definitely have weaknesses. I'm not the best infantry killer. I can drive vehicles, I can kill people with vehicles, but not again as best as some other people. But I think my tactical nous and flexibility do come into their own from time to time. So yeah, I rate myself as decent, but nowhere near the best, and giving me something to get better at, I guess. So Super Dan, thank you very much for the great question there. Next question comes from the JH1015, and they ask 3 questions. First of all, they ask, would I like to see more Rainbow Six Vegas 2 weapons in Battlefield 4? So, for instance, the Typo 5, the 21E, the FNC. Yeah, why not? More weapons, the merrier. And certainly if it adds more variety and they can be introduced and not unbalance the game, sure, why not? More the merrier. They then ask, do I think that Rainbow Six Patriots will be able to set the standard for next-gen games? It's going to be tricky, I certainly have high hopes for it. I mean, realistically, all they really have to do is to repeat the formula that Rainbow Six Vegas and Vegas 2 had, and just to improve upon it. Given the advances in technology and what people are doing with games these days. Some call Call of Duty 4 the Vegas killer, because it came out and all of a sudden everyone was playing Call of Duty 4 and not Rainbow Six anymore. That's true, but also at the same time, Vegas and Vegas 2 had its fair share of problems, bugs, glitches. For instance, I remember very well that when Rainbow Six Vegas 2 was released, the online in the first month was basically unplayable. Terrible network connection problems and all sorts of other terribleness, which basically killed the game before it even really got going, which is a shame because it was a great game. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it does have to work very hard. I think if it sticks to its formula, it will certainly set an initial standard with the next generation. And their final question is, do I think it would be nice if there were some online leagues in the next Gran Turismo? As unfortunately, my teammate decides to just kind of sink me. I'll skip this bit here. Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, for instance, on the 15th, which is actually the day you'll be seeing this, there is an event over in Silverstone announcing the future of Gran Turismo. More than likely, we will see Gran Turismo 6 there. Yeah, more features the merrier. Again, this is just kind of my mentality to things. If you can add features and not break anything, by all means, make it really usable or really neat and do lots of cool things. Yeah, online leagues would be a really nice step in terms of you could all of a sudden have championships and God only knows what else. So yeah, I would like that indeed very much. So the JH1015, thank you very much for your questions. Next question comes from I'm Gonna Take Your Name But Add HD, and they ask, what are my thoughts on the Luis Suarez bite? Very good question. So I don't really follow football that much. In fact, I'm going to take your name, but add HD mentions that in the question. But what I will say is I think it's damn right despicable. So the thing with modern footballers is that they are role models. People look up to them and they'll see, say, Luis Suarez bite someone and think that that's acceptable. It definitely is not acceptable to go around biting people, especially in that challenge. It was the lightest of touches, it was a fair bit of defence, and, well, poor guy got bitten for his efforts. Yeah, I think it was incredibly harsh, and put frankly, I think the 10-match ban he got was completely fair, and I don't see why Liverpool are even trying to appeal it. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to be completely frank. So, I'm going to take your name, but add HD, thank you very much for that question there. Joe Mould asks a great question here. They ask, do I blame sports people who dope and to enhance their performance, or do I blame the sponsors who put them under a large amount of pressure to do well? Really great question, and I think you can definitely see perhaps this question coming from, say, Lance Armstrong, amazing cyclist, won the Tour de France, I think it was 7 times, correct me if I'm wrong there, and it turns out that he had been taking performance-enhancing drugs the whole time. Yeah, I think it's despicable. Now, at the end of the day, yeah, the sponsors and everything else, they will put the pressure on the athlete to do well. They want to see their return on investment. But at the end of the day, it's still the athlete who ingests the drug or decides to take it. I think it's despicable. It's, the ultimate form of unfair play to give yourself an unfair advantage. Much like, say, you're playing Battlefield and you play with hacks, you give yourself God mode, whatever else. This is meant to be for enjoyment. It's meant to be a metric of understanding who's the best player at a given point in time, on a certain situation, on a certain map, whatever it may be. And by enhancing your ability unfairly, you've got to question why you're even there in the first place. So I definitely would blame the athlete in this, not the sponsor. If they're under that much pressure from a sponsor, again, the athlete needs to be saying to themselves, why are they in the sport for in the first place? So I think that pretty much wraps that up. Joe, thank you very much for a superb question there. Next question comes from Kuriokai, and I hope I've said that right. They ask, hypothetical situation. Red Bull offer you a drive with a £500,000 a year paycheck. Sauber offer me a drive with a £5 million a year paycheck. Which offer do I take? Fast car and less money, or a slow car and more money? Good question. Now, fundamentally, if I were, say, in the realm of being a Formula 1 driver, money wouldn't really come into it for me. I would want to be in the car which gave me the best chance to win the World Championship. And, present pace as is and as has been in the past, Red Bull is that car. It will give you the World Championship in both World Drivers and Constructors. So I would definitely take the Red Bull drive over the Sauber drive. Now, if you start to bring in, say, the ethics of the team, then that's a bit more of a dilemma for me. So Red Bull have had sensational success with their Formula 1 efforts as of late in the last few years. You can attribute a large amount of that to the incredibly good work that Adrian Newey has been doing. But there's a lot of background politic going on in Red Bull, which I don't, more than likely actually, will be still happening at Sauber, but there's just, I don't know, I'd feel uncomfortable almost, I think, driving at Red Bull. So I think rather more than just money, I'd have to assess, my chances of having a good drive and, a chance to win the championship, but also if I'd enjoy my time there, just winning the championship. You may achieve the end goal, but if you've not had fun on the way, what's the real point? So it's funny, because when I was doing my dissertation for university, my dissertation was making a game. I thought I'd love it, I get to make a game. That's fantastic. I play games all the time, it's going to be a real laugh. By the end of it, I resented the game I'd made so much that I really didn't care about how it turned out. I would hate that kind of situation to repeat in such a way that I've won, say, a world title and I haven't enjoyed the experience. So I'd probably, if ethics of the team and everything else came into it, I would definitely go with Sauber. On pure money terms, and say that the ethics are equal between everyone, I would probably have to go Red Bull. So Kiroke, thank you very much for that great question there. Next question comes from Dr. BCD PS3, and they ask, if I could design a game and it had unlimited resources and not taking into account current generation hardware limitations, how would it be? Really interesting question. So I think the first thing that you have to do today, especially with today's modern games, is consider the story and the setting. And it may surprise you that actually the game I'd probably make, based on my interests and what you could do with unlimited resources, money, power, whatever else in terms of processing, is actually produce a game very similar to that of Watch Dogs. Now, there is another question a little bit later on about Watch Dogs, so I will get to answering about why I'm keen on Watch Dogs there and then. But for me, I think a really special game is one which you'll go back to again and again, mainly because it gives you that kind of hit of, yeah, this is good fun, I want to keep doing this. And I think Watch Dogs will do that. The AI and just the way that they're setting the game up, I'm very interested in. Let me say that much without saying any more. So I'd definitely go for a game which had infinite replayability, just in nature, to actually kind of put the game together in such a way that you could never see the same situation twice. Combine that with a really good story and the ability to do user-generated content, so, adding new maps, whatever else, I don't know, I think you'd be onto a winner. So, yeah, I think that kind of sums it up in kind of really general terms. A game with a really good story, perhaps one which makes you consider yourself and what you currently perceive in the world. Several games have made me do that, but the ability to infinitely go back to it and enjoy it in new and different ways. That would be the perfect game for me, and that's definitely the type of game I would develop if I had the time. So yeah, Dr. BCDPS3, great question. Thank you very much for that. Next question comes from DanBazF1, and they ask, when I read the questions for Question Time, do I read them from oldest to most recent? Yes, I do, and that tends to be how you see them prepared. They go on to ask, and would I also disclose my last name? No, I'll be honest, guys, no, not yet. Privacy is kind of a neat thing. Again, this is thanks to my university education. If you really want to find someone, you can. The information is already out there. But privacy is something you need to protect, especially today with the internet and everything. You can find someone really quite easily indeed. So no disrespect to you guys, but I'd like to keep a bit of privacy for now, and we'll see what happens in the future, I guess. So Dan Baz, thank you very much for your questions there. Next question comes from the Cam Scott, and they ask, what sort of hobbies do I do in my spare time, and would I like to see civilian vehicles in Battlefield 4? So, hobbies I do in my spare time, well, obviously you guys are probably more than aware I'm a complete motorsport nut, but on top of that I'm actually a huge fan of railway trains, and steam trains in particular, since I've been very young. A thing about me is I'm very curious. If I see something, I'll try and figure out how it works, and steam trains were one of the first things I can remember, trying to figure out how it worked, and, well, kind of a lifelong session started from there. I do the whole model railway thing and built my own little, layouts and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's that. I'm quite into photography, and video games is a part of that to a degree. I probably got into photography thanks to Gran Turismo, actually, in the photo mode, and how amazing the camera is. I think people have described it as like the perfect digital SLR camera. So I've got a digital SLR, and I like to do a bit of photography from time to time. And video editing is something relatively new, as you guys can probably imagine, with the YouTube stuff coming along as it has. Just making videos, experimenting with the editor, and to see what I can produce. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums that part up. What about civilian vehicles in Battlefield 4? I think it would be cool, and it won't be the first time they've been in Battlefield either. Battlefield 2 Modern Combat had civilian vehicles. They were fast, nimble little things, but they had no armament and they were pretty weak. So you could nip across a map in a saloon car and get a flag home to your base really quickly, but a single rocket or even heck rifle fire could do significant damage to you. So yeah, I'd love to see that come back, and a little more of a tactical element. Do we go for the soft skin civilian vehicle, which is mighty quick, or do we go for the tank? And well, hopefully we'll get there without being stung by an anti-tank troop, I don't know. So yeah, I think that answers that. The Cam Scott, thank you very much for that great question. Next few questions comes from Bob Martin, and they ask, first of all, have I ever been trolled by someone in Battlefield 3? I wouldn't say directly. So I haven't been sort of in a situation where someone has deliberately, seeked me out and deliberately, tried to ruin my game or whatever, as you see some people do. Perhaps that's mainly because I don't tend to put myself in situations which you commonly see. For instance, there are some guys which camp up on hills all day, and all of a sudden someone will turn up with a load of C4 and just blow them into the next world. I don't play like that, so I haven't really experienced any of that. People have come after me though, and actually now I come to think of it, and deliberately gone for my tags and that kind of thing, but mind you, that isn't really trolling, so I'd have to say no, not as far as I know. Bob Martin's next question is then, what do I think of the Lions squad? They go on to say that they believe that there are certain people in the squad that should have been picked instead of those who have been, like Brad Barrett and Greg Laidlaw. So I'll be honest, I haven't really actually followed the announcement of the Lions tour too much. My recollection of hearing about it in the media was them making a big song and dance that Johnny Wilkinson wasn't going to be a part of the team because he was going to continue to play his rugby in France and not go on the tour for that reason. As a result, I can't really comment on the squad itself, but you've got to sometimes consider, I think, when one person becomes above the team, and to a degree, I think, don't get me wrong, Johnny's an amazing rugby player. He almost single-handedly got the 2003 World Cup for us when, that final kick right at the end of the game, sorry any Australian viewers, was bloody amazing. But he is a very, very big figure in the sport, I guess, and you don't want to have a situation like Sebastian Vettel had at Malaysia with Red Bull, where you become above the team. I think that other people could come along and do a better job, but because Johnny's there, you've got to you've got to play Johnny. He is the star of the team, right? Well, not always the case. Anyway, I digress. So I can't really answer the question, I'm afraid, but thank you very much for it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Lions do, and I'll certainly keep track of once they're actually out and playing against the various teams that they will be playing against. Thank you very much for your question, Bob, there. Next question comes from Arsenal 2022, and they ask, do I think that Paul di Resta should have been given Sergio Perez's seat at McLaren? Good question. Well, first of all, you've got to say that Paul's doing an incredible job so far for Force India, and I would say definitely after the sort of initial few races, yeah, you got to, there's a very serious argument that Sergio should not be at McLaren. But having said that, he's starting to come into form now. I think he's got used to the McLaren setup, and he's putting in some good races. He fairly raced Jensen in Bahrain, and was just pipped to the post by Jensen in Spain. So difficult to say. I think that Sergio obviously is a rookie driver, relatively speaking to Paul. Paul's got a bit more experience under his belt. But we'll have to wait and see. I know he signed a multi-year deal, but you never know. McLaren might let him go a little early. We'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, I've definitely been impressed by Paul's performances so far this year. Long may they continue. So Arsenal, thank you very much for your question there. The next question comes from Mr. Ruby1000, and they ask, do I think that a radio coming back, or what do I think of a vehicle radio coming back in Battlefield 4, a la the radios in Battlefield 2 Bad Company Vietnam? Well, I think it'd be pretty cool. I mean, the thing, although I never played Vietnam, I've seen people play it though. The thing with the radio is it added atmosphere. The thing with Vietnam, although I was never there, is that apparently there was a lot of people playing sort of the anti-war songs and stuff, and it kind of almost set the scene of the war. Kind of people didn't want to be there, but they were, and they were there to do the job, so they were going to do it. If the right music was chosen for Battlefield 4, depending on the story, of course, and all that kind of thing, yeah, why not? It would make things actually quite interesting in terms of videos, because all of a sudden you've got copyrighted music being in gameplay and everything else. I bet YouTube's copyright detection will have a field day. But no, if it adds to the game, adds to the scene, to the drama, why not? Why not indeed? And I have no problem with that whatsoever. So, Mr. Ruby, thank you very much for your question there. Next question comes from Lancer J, and they ask, what do I think about Metal Gear Solid 5 going into an open world format? I think it's cool. So the funny thing is, I thought when I was basically younger that is what basically Metal Gear Solid 3 would be about. So the thing with Metal Gear Solid 3 is the first time the game went into a proper jungle style environment. And it was the first time that basically you had to kind of forget what you knew in terms of infiltration. I think by going open world, Metal Gear Solid 5 is going to bring a lot of that back. All of a sudden you've got to consider your movement in the game world, because if you set off an alert over here, the whole world's going to react to that, whereas with Metal Gear Solid, as it has been, it's kind of been stage based. You could go from one area to another. Oh, you've got an alert over here, you'll just go to evasion over here. I'm really very interested in it indeed, and I'm sure it's going to make for a great game in terms of you're going to have to consider the logistics of sneaking around and getting from A to B and all this kind of cool stuff. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to really suit the game down to the ground, and I'm really looking forward to Metal Gear Solid 5 in general. So Lancer J, thank you very much for your questions there. Next two questions comes from The Soul. Their first question is, have I watched any of the trailers or footage from Watch Dogs, and what are my thoughts on it? Well, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. I am very, very interested in it. Information control and hacking a city and controlling, infrastructure like that, I think is a very interesting and relevant, more to the point, real-world topic. You will be seeing the concept of smart cities all integrated with computers and stuff in the future. It will happen, I know it. And, it's really interesting to explore the potential and the possibility of a single person being able to all of a sudden leverage all of that power and use it for good or nefarious purposes. The concept of information control, which also seems to be a kind of theme of the game, also intrigues me. In fact, Metal Gear Solid, thinking about it, also had a very strong theme of controlling of meme and passing on information based on its relevance. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's kind of science fiction, but not, and it's also, a real technical showcase for what you can achieve with computers today. The proper simulation of AI in a sort of massive open world environment and all this kind of stuff. I'm really looking forward to it. It's sort of a step outside the box, and I really do hope that it delivers on what it's shown off so far. So I'm really looking forward to it, to answer the first question of the soul. Thank you very much for that. And the next question, have I seen the characters trailer for GTA 5, and which character do I think is the best? Well, yeah, I have seen the trailer first of all. In fact, it's kind of three trailers rolled into one. and it's going to be it's interesting. So you've got three very diverse characters. You've got Franklin, Michael, and Trevor. Trevor's kind of a nutcase. Franklin is kind of a guy from the hood who's trying to, I think by the looks of it, get away from his current lifestyle, and Michael's a rich guy who's incredibly depressed. It's kind of, you know, a motley crew of who's who of the degenerate world, I guess. I'd say out of all the characters, you know, you can kind of say that Michael is well, Michael and Trevor, I would say, are probably the two I'm most interested in. No disrespect to Franklin, but I think I've kind of lived that life, if you will, lived that story from CJ, from GTA San Andreas, you know, in terms of, you know, you start out no money in the ghetto and you're trying to get out of it. If that is the case for Franklin, it could be interesting to see it perhaps again from another point of view, but it's been done. Now, the thing with Michael and Trevor, it's kind of close between these two. Michael, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, he's going to be the class character because he's completely insane, and, you know, he's there for, well, I wouldn't say comedy value. I'm sure that he's going to be there from some very serious point. This is a Rockstar game after all. But it's going to be interesting to see how Michael plays out into this, because he's got the money, he's got the status, he's got everything, which is an interesting position for a GTA character. You don't really tend to see that as a starting point for GTA games. So out of the characters, I'd say I'm more interested in Michael, just to see how Rockstar play him out and how you can play him as a character in the game itself. So I think I'll answer it like that, and Trevor's just going to be a laugh. So Lasol, thank you very much for the questions there. Great questions. Next question comes from Gasman2418, and they ask, what do I think about the new Sochi and Thailand racetracks for Formula 1? In their opinion, they are going to be shit. Well, I'll be honest, I've only seen the track diagram for Sochi. I've not seen any track layouts or anything for the Thailand track, but I will express, I guess, my concern. I think is how I put it for the Sochi track. It looks like a classic Tilka design. It looks very similar. It reminds me a lot of Korea in terms of just the corner layout and where you have corners and things. Now, I'd say a redeeming feature of that circuit is the fact that it's set amongst sort of the Winter Olympic Park, which could prove for some interesting corners, some interesting scenery, but at the end of the day, the track is meant to be challenging for the driver and more enjoyable for the crowd to spectate on. If the track can deliver that, great, but until we actually see some racing on it, I don't think we can really say too much yet. So Gasman, thank you for the question. We're going to have to wait a few years, I think, to get a fair answer on that. Next, two questions come from DowLive1, and they ask, have I ever played Skyrim, and what do I think of it? And have I ever been to Greece? Well, I've never been to Greece, although I went to university, and there are a lot of people from Greece there, so I've heard quite a lot about it. It sounds like a very nice place. I will have to go there at some point. And have I ever played Skyrim? Yes, I have. In fact, I think there's a video of me playing Skyrim on the channel if you look for it. I'm a big fan of the Elder Scrolls games, and I'll be brutally honest, Skyrim compared to Oblivion or Morrowind was a bit of a letdown, actually. It was a bit kind of mainstream. Here we go, Chuggy, put on your hipster glasses. But it was a good game, but it wasn't amazing, like, say, Morrowind and the amazing stuff you could do there, or Oblivion in terms of just the story and everything else. Yeah, it was a good game. I enjoyed it, but it definitely wasn't as good as, say, as perhaps I hyped myself up that it would be. And the additional question is, what servers do I play on other than endgame servers? Well, I'll be honest, I tend to just kind of roam around when I play Battlefield. I just kind of go, okay, I want to play some Rush now, or I want to play some Team Deathmatch, or whatever. I don't tend to go to one server. I tend to go to the server which has got the most people on it, and if it's got server rules on it, the ones which are basically the most sensible, or in general actually EA or DICE servers. I don't particularly want to be having a good game and have some badmin ban me for it, so I will digress there. Thank you, DellLive, for your great questions there. Unfortunately, I have a few more questions to get through. I'll try and answer these in the comments section. But guys, thank you very much for your amazing questions there. I hope you enjoyed my honest answers to those. If you have any questions you would like to ask me for next time, all you have to do is pop it down in the comments section of this video, and I'll get to answering it next question time. So guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you could leave a like, dislike, whatever you believe this video deserves, that'd be fantastic. If you have a question you want to ask me, please do feel free to leave it in the comments below. And if you're new to my videos and you want to see some more from myself, you can always subscribe. So guys, I've been Chuggy. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time out on the battlefield.